Happy Thursday, everyone, and welcome to Something to Talk About Live. Just like every Thursday, I'm very quickly going to bring in Jean Marie Nevada, who's going to facilitate our conversation today.
Jamie Henkel.
Hi, Jamie Henkel, she and her. I forgot that part.
You forgot that part where you introduced yourself completely.
I did. I'm the Learning and Inclusion Manager at PFLAG National, just so everyone knows.
It's lovely to meet you, Jamie Henkel.
Yeah, good to meet you too. Today we're talking about voting, which, as you know, meeting me the first time is one of my passions. So I'm really excited. And I can't wait to come back in just a couple minutes.
I am super excited. So I will see you back in a couple of minutes. We have a whole bunch of good people on, and I think it's going to be a really fun show. So I'll see you in a few minutes, Henkel. Hey, everybody. My name is Jean Marie Nevada. I'm the Director of Learning and Inclusion at PFLAG National. And every single week we get together to talk about something related to LGBTQ equality and inclusion. And this week we are talking, as Jamie just teased, the issue of voting and what that means. So as we look at some statistics, in 2020, LGBTQ voters actually made up about 7% of the electorate. And more than half have said they feel very motivated to vote in the next round of midterm elections, which is exactly what we're talking about because there is a lot of stuff at stake. So for those of you who are reading our article, you can get that at straightforequality.org/discussion series. This week's article is Voting Rights Are Key to Advancing LGBTQ plus Equality. That's from Penn Live, the Patriot News. It was Ricardo Almodovar who actually wrote the article. It's really interesting, making a case for why things are so absolutely critical at this particular moment. I mean, voting always matters, but sometimes it feels like it matters a lot more. And this happens to be one of those lot more moments. So we're actually going to start with a single guest, and then I'm going to bring my panel in today. And our single guest is actually my boss, Brian K. Bond, the Executive Director of PFLAG National. Hey, Brian, my favorite boss in the whole world.
I'm your only boss in the whole world, aren't I?
But you're definitely my favorite, too, also.
Well, thank you for allowing me to join today. I'm very excited about this subject, as is Jamie H. For those who don't know me, I'm Brian Bond, pronouns he, him, and his. And some days I am the Executive Director of PFLAG National, and other days I work for Jean Marie and some of the other amazing team members here at PFLAG.
Well, Brian, thank you especially for making some time to talk to us. So, you know, voting is always important, but in many ways, as I was just saying, it feels like it is even more urgent this time around. And it's really critical. Can you talk about a little bit from your perspective why you think that's the case, why this round of midterm elections is absolutely critical to all of us?
Absolutely. So I am of let's just say a particular age where every time elections come around, everyone says, including myself, it is the most important election ever. What we have seen happen, though, with the suppression, attempts to suppress the vote, with what is going on in the states, at the local level, Congress, the Supreme Court, this really is probably one of the most critical elections ever. And that 7% you talked about could be the margin of victory.
Wow. That's kind of a big way to look at it. But I think while it's also a huge responsibility, it kind of excites me because that makes that a really big opportunity. So, you know, you talk to a lot of people. I mean, every time I talk to you, you're telling me about some story you heard from a PFLAGger and what they're going through. You know, it's no secret that the last 2 years especially have been particularly difficult for our community and for our families. Can you talk about a little bit about what some of the legislation that has passed and even some of the stuff that hasn't passed but been introduced, particularly at the states, has meant to PFLAG families? Because I think sometimes we talk about legislation in such an abstract, people don't always connect the dots of what the very real impact actually is.
Sure. To say that we have seen in the state legislatures over the past couple of years, there's no way to underscore the significance, the hurt, the pain that's being inflicted on PFLAG families and LGBTQ plus families and individuals, period. What I've seen out of that, though, is somewhat of a fierceness, a desire to, and that's part of why we're here, right? a desire to how do we combat this. It would be really easy to give up, really easy to give up. We can't give up, and at least the PFLAGers I've been talking to that have kids in these locales, giving up is not an option for them. I feel very strongly that and believe within my heart that we will do everything we can to push back on this. And that includes registering to vote. It includes voting. It includes how many people can you take to the polls? How many people can you get registered? It's easy right now to get stuck where we are. And we can only play with the cards we've been dealt at this point. Yeah. And so with that, I'm looking forward to the show today, and I'm looking forward to our pflag.org/vote program and seeing where we can go as an organization, and especially on the ground to try to make a difference, because we don't have any choice. This is what we're stuck with, but we have to win. And I ultimately think we have the opportunity to do better than we're thinking right now. It's going to be hard. I'm not going to lie. It's going to be really hard, but we've got to put everything on the table this election, and candidly in 2024.
Yeah. It's as you say, we have to play with the cards that we've been dealt. It's all we've got. I mean, there is no other deck of cards that we can play with at this point. And I think you're absolutely right about that. But I also think there definitely is a sense of so much ground has been lost. There's a sense of hopelessness. And I don't think the game's over yet.
Look, it's everybody at PFLAG and every PFLAG chapter have been touched by the negative impacts of what's going on out there. Plus, just add on top of that COVID and everything else. But we really got to stay focused. We have to give it all. We have to try. We have to do it for not just ourselves and our community, but for the country, Canada.
Yeah. So one last thing, Brian. This is your big chance to tell people to do something. So what do you want people to do as soon as this show is over? What is their next step with getting ready for voting?
Sure. I want people to, A, make sure they're registered to vote. B, put together a list of people that you need to check in on to make sure they are registered to vote, and then start putting a plan in place to vote. And obviously to get people to register first, but then to vote. And just start paying attention to the information that's going to be coming out from us. It will be important as you put that plan in place. And don't lose hope. I mean, look, the people on the other side have a long game here. We have to have that long game too. And we have to win where we can and make inroads where we can, and keep pushing back. And just don't give up.
Yeah. And it only happens if you get that vote counted. That is the biggest tool that we have. Well, thank you, Brian, for spending a little bit of time with us and giving us some direction. I think making your plan to vote and then getting other people engaged is exactly where to start. So thank you for spending some time with us. And of course, we will have you back to talk about more stuff soon.
I appreciate everything you do. Thank you so much.
Bye. All right. So with those instructions, we actually need to go a little bit further because we need to talk about what is at stake, what gets people excited about voting, and what you should be doing next. And for that, I have a whole panel of some of my very favorite colleagues to give their wisdom in the topic. So I am going to actually ask if we can bring the entire panel on, and I'm going to ask everybody to do a very quick round of introductions. So we have Jamie Henkel, Patrick Cochran, and Diego Sanchez. So very quickly, Jamie, Patrick, then Diego, could you do a quick introduction for yourself, and then we will get into questions.
Yeah. Hello again, everyone. Jamie Henkel, pronouns she and her. I'm the Learning and Inclusion Manager at PFLAG National, and I'm joining you from Portland, Oregon.
Hi, everyone. I'm Patrick Cochran. I use he, him pronouns, and I am the Advocacy and Policy Engagement Senior Coordinator here at PFLAG, calling in from Washington, D.C. That was one breath.
Hi, everybody. My name is Diego Sanchez. My pronouns are he and him, and I am the Director of Advocacy, Policy, and Partnerships at PFLAG National. Delighted to be here in Washington, D.C.
Well, I am so grateful for all of you because I would be hard pressed to name 3 people I know who get more excited when you say the word voting and who really legitimately want to talk about it. So before we get into the heavier questions, I actually want to ask each of you sort of where your passion for voting actually came from. So maybe we can go Diego, Patrick, and then Jamie. What was the thing that inspired your passion about voting? I mean, I find that a lot of you have superhero backstories. So tell us a little bit about what got you into this. And Diego, we'll start with you.
Thank you so much, Jean Marie. Well, living as a queer kid of color in the South before and during the civil rights era, watching the power resting in hands like Lester Maddox, George Wallace, and Strom Thurmond, I realized this can't be how I have to live the rest of my life. So I started reading election returns back in those days. You'd pull out the parchment and read, maybe newsprint if you were lucky. But I noticed that in precincts, some of the votes were really, really close, and everybody lives in a precinct. So today we can see the results come in like sports scores from the likes of Steve Kornacki on MSNBC, and he makes it as exciting as it actually is. But it shows that casting votes really matters, and every moment ticks down till the polls close. That's what keeps me and got me engaged.
I love that. I love that. And I love seeing those numbers. I agree with you as somebody who grew up with the parchment too. The computer results are kind of fabulous. Patrick, tell us a little bit.
Yeah, so I was 6 or 7 months too young to vote in 2012. And that really, really annoyed me because at that point, I was already quite politically conscious, and I was actually working on my first campaign, which was a campaign to get the DREAM Act passed in Maryland. The state legislature had passed it into law, but it got sent to a ballot referendum. I had several undocumented friends at school, and I just really couldn't understand why anyone would want to essentially bar them from getting the same kind of higher education that I knew I wanted to get, that they definitely wanted to get. So worked really hard on that campaign, including on election day itself. I stood the 100 yards or whatever it was, 100 feet away from the front door of the polling place and tried to convince people last second. And there actually were a few people who hadn't really thought of the question yet, so got to talk to them. And that night, the DREAM Act won. So it was a really cool experience as, you know, my first kind of foray into electoral politics. And it was really formative for me to see that democracy could really work for everyone. And I voted in every single election since.
I love that, especially because there are probably a whole bunch of political nerds who are all thinking back to their first moment of standing outside of the election, that 100 feet. Yeah, all, it's exciting. Thank you. Jamie, tell us a little bit about your origin story.
Yeah, my origin story. So the first election I was able to vote in was the 2004 presidential election. So 2000 was like fresh on everybody's minds. And I just remember being so moved by the stories of people who truly were disenfranchised in the 2000 election because of so many different things that happened in that period of time. And so it was something I was already passionate about. And then in my first election, I was living in the city of Richmond, Virginia. And I remember at my polling place, which was in a poor, mostly Black neighborhood in the city of Richmond, I stood in line to vote for more than 2 hours. There was only one functional voting machine. There was only one person who was assigned to check people in and out and give them their stickers and do all of the things. And then shortly after that, I took a friend of mine to their polling place in a affluent, mostly white neighborhood in the city of Richmond, and they were in and out in 10 minutes. They had an experience where there were 5 or 6 voting machines that were there and functional. There were all of these volunteers. There were people standing 100 feet away trying to tell them what to do and how to vote. And it was just really living that experience in my first election, I think, is something that has made me really passionate about making sure that other people don't have that sort of experience and that they are able to cast their vote just like they are allowed to do in a democracy.
What a great story, and what a great story to really say those stories that you hear on the news are real when you can say, I actually saw this for myself. So Diego, people tend to think about elections in terms of X number of Republicans, X number of Democrats. It sometimes feels really abstract. And yet that X number and X number are going to be voting on things that are not at all abstract, that have a significant impact on people's lives. Can you tell people about a few examples of the kind of things that legislators are likely to be looking at when they head off to Congress, those same legislators who we will be voting on very soon?
Yes, thank you so much, Jean Marie. Well, first of all, I just want to say you don't have to be partisan, just a person to care about and be active in politics, elections, and voting. Each vote really counts. And every 2 years, we replace the whole of the House. We vote on a third of the Senate. And the Senate is who votes for federal judges, including SCOTUS. And we have local legislatures, we have judges, we have executive branch folks locally, like the mayor, city council, and county commissions. But some of the bills that are going to be coming up are things like the John R. Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. It lost this past time in the Senate 49-51, and we needed a 2/3 majority because we know why. It's something we need to get rid of, filibuster. Filibuster. It's a buster. The John R. Lewis Every Child Deserves a Family Act that has to do with foster care and adoption are really important to our families. The Women's Health Protection Act, it's still fighting. We keep moving it, but it's not done, and it ought to be. That's going to be coming back up. And recently, we've also seen, and there will continue to be movement on, the Respect for Marriage Act. And why do we have to have the Respect for Marriage Act? Well, what it would do, of course, is create safety for same-sex and interracial marriages. But looking at why we need it are things like Dobbs just removing, the Supreme Court through Dobbs removing federal constitutional right to abortion, reversing 50 years of Roe v. Wade. That's as old as PFLAG National. We'll also have the Equality Act either this or next or both Congress sessions. And the Safe School Improvement Act has got to come back up. That'll finally give non-discrimination protections from bullying in public schools. That should not be.
No. And there's so much. And I don't think that people even realize the scope of this. And I'm so glad that you connected the fact that the people sitting on the judiciary at all different levels are a result of who we are electing. And I don't think that people understand there's so many layers down, and that it needs to be part of our strategy. So thank you. So Jamie, your background is in political science. You are the biggest voting junkie that I know. You get so excited about it. It's actually kind of amusing to me. But one of the things that you do with that great education is you develop educational programs for our members and for our PFLAG supporters. So when it comes to voting, what do you think are the important things for people to understand about what is going on around them? And what should they also be communicating to the people that they know? I know you are the queen of Make a Plan to Vote.
Yeah. So I have 3 things that I'm going to list here. There are so many more, but these are my top 3. The first thing that I want people to know is even if you voted in 2020, even if you voted in the primaries last fall or in this early spring, check to be sure that you're registered to vote, that you're eligible, that your registration is up to date. Do it. Check. Since January of 2021, 18 different states have passed more than 30 bills making voting more difficult for the people who live there. So even if you voted in 2020, just confirm. It'll take you 2 minutes. Go and confirm. The second thing I would say is no matter what you think, just like Diego alluded to, your vote matters, and it will absolutely positively have an immediate impact on the lives of people that you care about. Even if you live in a state where you're like, my congressperson has been in office for 100 years, it's not a competitive race. There are down ballot races for state legislative offices, for school boards, for judges, for county commissioners, just like Diego was alluding to. Every single one of those offices has a potential to make a difference in the lives of people that you care about. And then my third thing, and Jean Marie has seen different educational resources I've done that just say these 4 words or 3 words: stay in line. If you are voting in person, whether that's early or whether it's on election day, if you are in line by the time the polls close, you must be permitted to vote. Don't let anyone convince you to leave the line for any reason whatsoever. Don't let people intimidate you. Don't let them try to convince you to come back another day. If you are in line, you get to vote. So those are my top 3 things.
I love that, Henkel. And I especially love the sign posting. You know, my little organizing brain just got very, very excited about that whole thing. So Patrick, you spent a lot of time trying to organize our chapters at both the state and the national level. So can you talk about some of the very specific programs that you are working on and what issues those connect to? Because Diego just listed a whole bunch of pieces of legislation. What's going on out there?
Yeah, so first and foremost, I do want to let people know about PFLAG Votes 2022. So I highly encourage each and every one of you to go to pflag.org/vote to look for resources to help you and your fellow PFLAGers plan voter registration events, mobilization, and of course, voter education events, all while staying nonpartisan. That's quite critical for us. We also have a PAO on this very topic tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern. So please visit pflag.org/online academy. That's all one word to register if you haven't already. And even if you can't make it tonight, I highly encourage you to register because that way you can access the playback tomorrow morning or whenever else you have time to look at it. Second, I would really be remiss, and I think Liz Owen would never forgive me, if I didn't mention our Fighting Censorship campaign. We have a web page all about fighting anti-LGBTQ plus censorship, which primarily is happening at the very, very local level. We're talking school boards, library boards, places where things like this can really fly under the radar. So it's so, so important for you to check this information out and really learn about what's going on if you aren't already aware. And it will give you a lot of tips about things you can do to combat all of this, which includes joining our wonderful #ReadWithLove campaign, where you can donate frequently challenged, frequently banned books to your local library. So highly recommend that as well. And lastly, I do want to say, with all of this legislation that Diego brought up, please keep checking our Policy Matters newsletter. In there, we will have all of the things that are going on your state level, on the federal level. Sometimes we get into the local level too. But in terms of anti-LGBTQ plus bills that are happening at the state level, in terms of both pro and anti-equality bills that are happening on the federal level, that'll be your #1 source. So please check that out.
Thank you. Who would have thought we would be dealing with book banning and burning at this volume at this stage? Who knew? Everybody just threw their hands up in the air. We were all like, no one planned on this. So we are getting a little bit close-ish to the time that we need to wrap up, which is my least favorite part of the show, to be honest with you. So I want to give everybody a chance to really make the case and give your assignments as to what people need to do next. So I'm going to start with Diego. I'll go to Henkel and then to Patrick. What do you want people to do right now? Henkel, I know you gave sort of your 3 big important things, but we want to leave everybody with their final action item. Tell them what it is, tell them why it's important, and tell them how to get started. Diego, you are first. Oh, I think we have you on mute. Sorry.
My bad. I said, Henkel's a teacher. She'll always have 3 more. Never worry. So I have 3. First of all, don't let voter suppression lead to depression. Go back to high school. Fight, team, fight. Tell your friends and tell them that you're registered. Tell them you're going to vote. Be informed and do so with pride. Go back to high school. #2 is regarding identity documents. For people like me and others, it can be a really frightening thing to know that when you lay out your ID, am I going to get through or not? It's horrible, but you can check in advance for what is required. Reach out to us, go to that page and make sure that on pflag.org/votes, vote. We can help you know what you need. We'll help you go to your state, figure out what you need, and know the right documents to have. Do know the rules and let us help you if you don't know what they are. Check it before you go, the way that Jamie Henkel talked about doing. And if you get challenged and are asked to do a provisional ballot, do it. But make sure you report it. And also my 3rd is take a friend, offer a ride, keep a voter protection hotline with you at all times. And always remember to go to pflag.org/vote. We'll be glad to help.
I also want to add on to that. I'm glad that you mentioned about the provisional ballot. A couple of elections ago, there was a problem with my registration, and I did have a chance to do one. And it was very intimidating at first, but I did my ballot and my vote got counted and everything got sorted out. But thank you for saying that, because I think when that happens to you, if that happens to you, it is a very intimidating and kind of frightening moment at that moment. So thank you for bringing that up. Henkel, what you got for us?
Yeah, so I'm going to stick with making a plan. Make a plan to vote, whether it's in your head, whether it's down on paper, whether it's using an I'm voting because card or another tool. Plan your vote. Make a decision about whether you're going to vote by mail, whether you're going to vote early, whether you're going to vote in person. If you are going to vote in person on the day of the election, think about, this is the time I'm going to go. I'm going to go before work. This is how I'm going to get there. I'm going to drive. This is where I'm going to go next. Think about those things. Make that plan, because it really, truly does make you more likely to vote. The other thing that I would say is, make sure that if you are able to, you're tracking your ballot. I live in the state of Oregon. We have all mail-in elections. I get a ballot mailed to me. I have time to look through it and fill it out at my leisure, and then I can either mail it back or drop it off at a ballot box. And, you know, that is something that I have to plan for as well. I have to think about, when are you going to drop it off? Do you have the postage you need? All of those sorts of things. And then lastly, Diego talked about this a little bit as well, but commit 866ourvote.org to memory. Bookmark it on your phone, save a note, do something. 866ourvote.org, because that is that election protection hotline that you will need to get any information if you are challenged on the day that you arrive at the ballot box to cast your vote.
Thank you. Thank you. And remain calm, because you can report this and you can be, every time you report, you're part of fixing the problem. Thank you, Jamie. Patrick, you get the final word on this one. What do you want? What assignments are you giving to people?
Yeah, so I'm going to take a guess and say that the vast majority of you watching are probably already registered to vote. Check to make sure still, but I'm going to take that guess. So my assignment to all of you is to register your friends, register your relatives, register your colleagues, particularly the young people around you. Younger people, they tend to change addresses a lot more often, which makes registration hard. And they also just tend to vote less often. They need a nudge or 5 to get out to the ballot box. And they really do and can use your help here. And not to lean too much into my youthfulness, but the problems that we're seeing today are going to affect young people for a really long time. They are really the ones that are going to bear the brunt of everything that is happening right now and everything that will lead to. So I really hope that all of you watching will do everything you can to really help this subset of the population get out to the ballot box and make their voices heard. So please check out PFLAG Votes 2022. Please check out those resources and see what you can do to get as many people to the polls as possible.
This was perfect. This was exactly, I think, what we needed for everybody. We needed clarity. We needed action items, and you delivered on all of them, everybody. My colleagues, thank you, my friends, for being here and for doing this. And I have to admit to you that even I'm getting kind of excited about my voting right now. So thank you for everything that you are doing. And we will definitely have you back more before this is all over to talk about this a little bit more. I'll see everybody soon. Well, that wraps us up for another show. So a couple of things to remember: if you are watching this live, make sure you check out pflag.org/online academy to learn out about how you can sign up for this evening's webinar on voting. Even if you can't join us, you can actually get a link to that recording. If not, you can always check it out later on the PFLAG website. So that is a really big one. Please, please, please check your voter registration. Make sure that everything is in order. Do not assume that everything is set. And start engaging other people. This is, I know, like Brian said, we always say this is the most important election of our lives. this really may be one of the most important elections of our lives. And the only way it's going to matter and go in the right direction is if we get out there. And I know we can. So thank you for joining us today. We will be back with another great show. Make sure you are checking out that pflag.org/vote. And also, if you want to learn more about that Read with Love campaign, that is pflag.org/readwithlove. We will be back with another show next week for you with another fantastic topic. Hopefully we'll have a little bit more fun. It won't be quite as heavy as this one because this was a little intense. But take care of yourselves. We wrap up the same way every single week, reminding you to run fast, laugh hard, and most of all, please be kind. My name is Jean Marie Navetta. If you need help, visit us at pflag.org. Until then, we'll see you next week, everyone. Bye.